The hangar was silent. To silent, it was not the silence of peace, but the silence of fear. At the center of the massive alien docking bay stood a ship that did not belong. Its shape was strange, uneven, almost broken. The hull was scarred with burns and cracks, glowing faintly with unstable blue energy that pulsed like a dying heartbeat. Metal plates shifted as if they were alive, groaning from some invisible weight. Every alien eye avoided it, and every voice lowered whenever it was near. The ship had a name whispered only in fear. The Junker. It was said that no pilot had ever taken it into space and returned alive. 3 had tried. 3 had failed. The first died within minutes as the ship's controls spun out of order, crushing the cockpit around him. The second vanished the moment the engines activated, as if swallowed into another dimension. The third screamed for 20 full seconds before silence cut him away. His ship fell back into the hangar, burned black and lifeless. No one dared touch it again. The aliens, proud and advanced, called it cursed. They had the finest ships in the galaxy, sleek vessels of silver and crystal, yet this thing sat like a dark wound among them. To even stand near it was considered bad luck. Engineers kept their distance. Soldiers spat when they walked past it. Commanders shook their heads and whispered, "A piece of junk." But still, no one removed it. Why? Because deep within its twisted frame was something no one fully understood. The Junker was not just a ship, it was older, stranger. Its engines pulsed with a technology even the oldest alien scientists could not explain. Some believed it was not built but grown. Others said it was a weapon of a forgotten war. Whatever it was dangerous. Too dangerous to destroy, too dangerous to use. So it remained, locked in the hangar like a beast in chains. The hangar crew worked around it every day, pretending not to see it. But everyone felt it, a pressure in the air, a weight that pushed against the mind. New recruits often asked, why not melt it down? Why keep it here? The answer was always the same, because no one dares. The story of the Junker spread across the station, across fleets, across worlds. It became a legend of warning. Pilots swore never to go near it. Captains forbade their crew from touching it. And yet, the legend grew stronger with every passing year, pulling on the imagination of all who heard it. In the corner of the hangar, a group of alien soldiers stood whispering, their voices uneasy. Do you see it? Still glowing, still alive. It should have been destroyed. Destroy it. And what if it fights back? Better to leave it. Better never to wake it again. Their eyes flicked to the ship, then quickly away. Fear was in their bones. And yet, despite the fear, despite the silence, the Junker waited. It waited for someone foolish enough, or brave enough. A day was coming when the ship's engines would roar again, when someone would dare to sit inside, to grip its strange controls, to face the beast that no alien could tame. But that day was not yet here. For now, the ship slept, humming softly in the darkness, a broken shadow among giants, and the hangar slept with it, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending the danger was not real. But deep down, every alien knew the truth. The ship was not done. It was only waiting. The silence stretched on, heavy and thick, until it felt like the air itself was listening. A single spark flickered across the hull of the Junker, crawling like lightning over its surface before fading away. The aliens shivered. None of them spoke, but each thought the same thing. Who will be the next fool? Who will climb into the death machine? And then, almost as if the galaxy itself had heard their unspoken question, a new figure entered the hangar. Small, different, human. But that is another part of the story. The heavy doors of the hangar groaned open. A rush of cold air swept through the massive chamber, carrying with it the sound of boots striking the metal floor. Aliens turned, curious at first, then confused, then silent. A single figure walked in, small, fragile compared to their tall frames. Human. He did not walk with hesitation. His steps were calm, measured, steady, as if he belonged here. His eyes, sharp and steady, went straight to the ship that others called cursed. He did not look at the soldiers, the commanders, or the mechanics standing around. He looked only at the Junker. Murmurs spread like fire through the crowd. A human here. What is he doing? The human stopped just a few paces from the ship. He tilted his head slightly, studying it the way a hunter studies a wild animal. His face showed no fear, only quiet interest. The glowing energy along the ship's hull reflected in his eyes. One alien officer, tall and armored in bronze, stepped forward with anger in his voice. "You cannot be here. This is restricted." The human did not turn. His voice was calm, almost soft. "This is the ship." The officer frowned. "That ship is death. No one touches it. No one flies it." The human finally looked at him. His gaze was sharp, direct, like a blade cutting through the air. "Then why keep it?" The officer hesitated. For the first time, his words failed. Round him, the others shifted nervously. They had no answer, because the question itself carried danger. Why keep it indeed? Another voice rose, this one from the back. "3 died in there, human. Their screams still haunt the hangar." "Then maybe it is not the ship that failed," the human said quietly. "Maybe it was the pilots." The silence that followed was heavy, pressing against every chest. Aliens stared at him as though he had just spoken madness. Their kind, their best, their bravest dead. And yet here was this small creature, daring to suggest it was not the ship's fault, but their weakness. The commander of the hangar stepped forward. His voice was low, filled with warning. "Human, you do not understand. That ship bends space itself. It tears at the mind. No pilot can survive it." The human's lips curved into the smallest hint of a smile. "No pilot." His words struck deep. Some aliens growled, offended. Others looked uneasy, as though the human's calm was more frightening than anger. He did not boast. He did not shout. He simply stood, small against the massive shadow of the junker, and spoke as if the outcome was already decided. The commander narrowed his eyes. "You think you can do better than our pilots? You think you can survive what killed them?" "I don't think," the human replied. "I know." A wave of shock rippled through the room. The commander stepped closer, his voice a hiss. "Do you understand what you are saying? This ship is cursed. Its engines tear apart reality. Its systems cannot be controlled. It killed 3 of my best, and it waits for me." The human said simply. For a moment, it felt as if even the ship itself had heard those words. The faint hum along the hull pulsed stronger, a glow running like fire down its scarred sides. The aliens froze. Was it reacting, or was it coincidence? None dared answer. One mechanic shouted, "Desperate, you'll be dead before the engines. Warm, your body will shatter. Your mind will burn." The human's eyes never left the junker. His voice was steady, unshaken. "Then let it try." The commander's jaw tightened. He saw no fear in this strange being, no hesitation, only a calm defiance that unsettled even the bravest of his men. Finally, he spoke again, this time with a grim weight. "Very well, if you wish to die, no one here will stop you. But remember this, human, your death will prove what we already know. That ship cannot be mastered." The human turned to him, meeting his gaze without blinking. "Or it will prove something else, that humans can do what others cannot." Gasps echoed through the hangar. Some aliens sneered at the arrogance. Others felt a chill, because deep down, a part of them wondered, could it be true? The human stepped closer to the junker. The glow along its surface seemed to reach for him, faint sparks dancing as if the ship itself recognized something. His hand rose, hovering just above the scorched metal, close enough to feel the vibration. For a second, everything in the hangar went quiet. Even the background hum of machines seemed to fade. Then, softly, the human spoke. "You and I, we're going to fly." The words were not shouted. They were not meant for the aliens. They were meant for the ship. And the ship answered. A low thrum rolled across the hangar, deep and alive, shaking the floor beneath their feet. Lights flickered. Panels groaned. The aliens stepped back in fear, their eyes wide. The junker had been silent for years, but now, under the gaze of a human, it stirred. And in that moment, everyone knew something was about to happen that none of them could stop. The hangar shook as the strange ship rumbled to life. Lights flickered, beams groaned, and the air vibrated with an energy none had felt in years. The aliens stepped back, fear written across their faces. They had sworn never to touch the junker. Again, yet here it was, waking under the presence of a single human. The human stood calm, his hands still resting on the battered hull. He looked like a man standing beside a wild beast, not afraid, not trembling, but waiting for it to recognize him. The glow along the ship's scars pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, as though the two were already connected. Voices broke out around him. Soldiers muttered warnings. Mechanics cursed. Officers barked orders to hold back, to stay clear. One alien shouted, "Stop this madness. Shut it down before it kills us all." Another answered, "No one can shut it down. Don't you remember what happened last time?" Fear spread like fire. Some rushed for the exits. Others hid behind machines. Yet a few, frozen by shock, stayed to watch. The sight was too impossible to turn away from. The hangar commander stepped forward, his voice thundering through the chaos. "Human, step away. That thing is a trap, a weapon. You cannot control it." The human turned his head slowly, his expression calm. Maybe it is a weapon, or maybe it is waiting for the right hands. The commander's eyes narrowed. "You think those hands are yours?" "I don't think," the human said quietly. "I know." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the rising hum of the junker's awakening systems. Panels across its surface lit up one by one, glowing with alien symbols none of the crowd could read. Yet somehow, the human seemed to understand. An engineer, shaking with fear, cried out, "You don't understand what you are doing. That ship bends time. It bends space. It bends the mind until it breaks. No pilot can survive it." The human stepped closer to the cockpit hatch. "Then perhaps you were never meant to survive it. Perhaps it needs someone who refuses to break." The commander's jaw tightened. His soldiers looked at him for orders, but he gave none. His instinct screamed to drag the human away, to lock the ship down forever. Yet something held him still, the faint thought that perhaps this human, reckless as he was, might do what no one else could. Still, he tried once more. His voice was lower now, almost pleading. "Human, I watched my best pilots die inside that coffin. I heard their screams. I saw their bodies burn. Do not throw your life away." The human paused at the cockpit. For the first time, his eyes softened, though not with fear. If they died, it wasn't the ship's fault. It was that they didn't know how to listen to it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Listen to it. A ship, to them, it was nonsense. The words of a fool. But the way the junker pulsed and hummed as if answering the human made some wonder. If it was madness at all. The commander's fists clenched. "This is suicide. You will not prove anything. You will only die." The human placed his hand on the hatch. "Then let me die. But if I live, you will see what a human can do." The hatch hissed open with a sound like a breath. Cold mist poured out, curling around the human's feet. Inside, the cockpit glowed with strange symbols and controls unlike any other ship. No alien had lasted long within it. No alien ever would again. The human climbed in without hesitation. His movements were slow but steady, like a man stepping into destiny. The hatch sealed shut behind him, locking him inside with the beast. The crowd held its breath. Inside the ship, the lights flared, panels adjusted, shifting into patterns as if welcoming him. The seat molded around his body, fitting him perfectly as though it had always been meant for him. His hands touched the controls, and the ship's hum deepened, resonating with his very heartbeat. Outside, the aliens panicked. "He's insane," one shouted. "He'll be dead in seconds," cried another. The commander raised his hand, silencing them. His eyes never left the junker. Something about the way it moved under the human's touch filled him with dread and awe at once. The ship roared, louder now, shaking the hangar to its foundations. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The floor trembled. Alarms blared. Yet through the chaos, the commander's gaze locked onto the cockpit window, where the human sat still, calm, almost at peace. The commander whispered to himself, "Why him? Why now?" No answer came, only the rising scream of engines that had not burned in years. The human gripped the controls. The junker pulsed in reply. The hangar filled with blinding light, drowning the crowd in fear and wonder. And in that final moment before the ship rose, the aliens realized something that chilled their bones. This human was not going to die. Something far more dangerous was about to happen. The hangar floor trembled as the junker's engine screamed to life. The sound was raw, not like the smooth hum of the alien fleet's polished vessels, but wild, violent, as if the ship itself was alive and angry. Sparks shot across the walls, lights burst overhead, and panels shook loose from the ceiling. Soldiers shouted, engineers scrambled for cover, and yet no one dared to step closer. The human sat inside the cockpit, hands firm on the alien controls. His face was calm, his breathing steady, even as the chaos around him grew louder. The controls twisted and shifted beneath his grip, rearranging into strange shapes as though the ship was testing him. Any other pilot would have panicked. He did not. He simply adjusted, learning the rhythm, matching his movements to the strange, living machine. From outside, the crowd of aliens stared with disbelief. "It's alive," one shouted. "No one can hold that thing steady," cried another. But still, the human held on. His body rocked with the violent shakes, his muscles straining against invisible forces, yet his focus never wavered. The cockpit lights flickered, painting his face in glowing symbols that only he seemed to understand. Then came the moment they had all dreaded. The junker rose. Metal groaned as the ship lifted slowly off the hangar floor. Dust and debris scattered in all directions, swept away by the roaring engines. The ground cracked beneath the weight of its power. The aliens stumbled back, shielding their faces from the blast of heat and light. For the first time in years, the cursed ship had broken free of the ground. Inside, alarms blared. Warning lights flashed across every panel. Strange voices echoed through the cockpit, whispers in languages long dead. They tried to flood the human's mind, to break his focus, to fill him with terror. But he refused to listen. He shut out the noise and clung to the controls like a man holding the reins of a raging beast. The ship fought him. It twisted, pulling against his grip, trying to throw him aside. But he leaned into the storm, his jaw set, his knuckles white. Every second felt like a battle of will. Sweat dripped down his face, but his eyes burned with determination. From the observation deck above, the commander leaned forward, his face pale. He had seen pilots fight this fight before. They all lost. They all screamed before the ship swallowed them. But this human, he was different. He was not screaming. He was not breaking. He was holding. The ship rose higher, its engines howling, rattling the entire station. Outside, stars shimmered through the opening hangar doors, waiting like sharp eyes. The aliens pressed against the walls, their fear mixing with awe. He's doing it," one whispered. "It's impossible," another muttered. The commander said nothing. His eyes never left the rising ship. The junker tilted violently, nearly slamming into the hangar wall. Gasps erupted from the crowd. But inside, the human forced the controls back, muscles straining as the ship resisted. With a guttural sound, he pulled harder, and the junker obeyed, straightening itself at the last moment. The aliens stood frozen. No one had ever bent the junker's will before, no one but him. The engine screamed louder, pulling the ship upward. The floor cracked further, beams rattled, and alarms across the station rang in unison. Still the human pressed forward, guiding the ship toward the open void of space. And then, with a final burst of fire and thunder, the junker shot free of the hangar. The aliens rushed to the observation windows, eyes wide as they watched the cursed ship streak into the blackness of space. Trails of burning light followed in its wake, painting the stars with its fury. For a moment, time itself seemed to stretch, the ship bending the sky around it as it climbed higher, faster, beyond anything they thought possible. Inside, the human fought against forces that twisted reality itself. Gravity pulled at him from every direction. The cockpit shook like it was tearing apart. His vision blurred as strange colors flickered across the glass, stars bending into impossible shapes. The ship wanted him gone. It wanted him broken, but he refused to let go. His voice cut through the storm, steady and low. "You're not in control. I am." The cockpit responded. The violent shaking slowed. The twisted lights calmed. The ship's pulse matched his heartbeat once again. Steadier now, stronger. For the first time, The junker was not fighting him, it was listening. Back in the hangar, silence fell. The aliens stood frozen, their eyes locked on the burning trail and the stars. The whispers began. He tamed it. No one could. But the commander's voice was low, almost to himself. No, he did not tame it. It chose him. The station shuddered as the sound of the junker's engines faded into the distance. The cursed ship was gone, carrying with it the one creature no one expected to survive. For years, the aliens had mocked humans as fragile, reckless, weak. But now, as the void swallowed the light of the junker, every alien in that hangar felt the same quiet truth. Something had changed, and it would never change back. The stars twisted into strange shapes as the junker roared into open space. The engines screamed, bending the very fabric of reality. The ship shook violently, as though the universe itself wanted to crush it back into silence. Inside the cockpit, the human gripped the controls with steady hands. His jaw was tight, his breath even, but sweat rolled down his temple. The ship was alive, angry, and wild. Every other pilot had been broken by this moment. Their minds had snapped, their bodies torn apart by the strain. Yet here he sat, refusing to bend. The view before him shifted into madness. Stars did not stay still. They stretched into rivers of light, bending into spirals that should not exist. Planets warped into impossible shapes, and dark shadows crawled across the edges of space like living creatures. The human felt the pull of 1,000 directions at once, as if unseen hands were tearing him apart. A whisper crawled into his mind, soft and cold. It was not his own thought. It came from the ship, words that were not words, feelings that pressed against his skull, testing his will. Other pilots had screamed at this stage, clutching their heads, begging for release. But the human closed his eyes for a moment and let the voice wash over him. He did not fight it. He listened. His eyes opened again, sharp and clear. "I hear you," he said softly. The ship pulsed, the lights across the panels glowing brighter. The violent shaking slowed for a heartbeat, as though the junker itself was considering him. Then, without warning, the storm returned stronger than before. The cockpit tilted sideways. His body slammed against the restraints. The gravity crushed him into his seat, pressing like a mountain on his chest. His ribs strained, his vision blurred. He could barely breathe, but he kept his hands on the controls, forcing them to move, guiding the ship back into balance. Outside, space bent further. Strange flashes of color burst across the darkness, green and purple waves rippling like curtains. Time twisted, seconds stretched like hours, then snapped into nothing. He saw stars dying and being born in the blink of an eye. He should have been terrified. Instead, he whispered to himself, "Beautiful." The ship growled in reply, its engines tearing through the impossible currents. Warnings screamed across the panels, but the human ignored them. His focus was not on fear, but on rhythm, the strange rhythm of the ship's pulse. The beat of its impossible heart. Another force struck, harder this time. A violent pull dragged the ship sideways, straight toward a rift in space. It was a black wound in the sky, swirling with crimson light. The junker fought to dive into it. Desperate, hungry, any alien pilot would have panicked, pulling back, resisting until the rift tore them apart. The human did the opposite. He leaned into the pull. He let the ship slide closer, his hands guiding but never forcing. The rift expanded before him, swallowing stars, stretching like the mouth of some cosmic predator. His heart raced, but his mind was calm. "Show me," he whispered. The ship howled, plunging through the edge of the rift. Inside, reality shattered. The cockpit filled with a storm of voices, screams, laughter, echoes of things long dead. The human's vision blurred again, replaced by flickers of alien landscapes, battles fought ages ago, worlds burning. He saw pilots before him, their faces twisted in fear as they failed, one by one. Their terror clawed at him, demanding he join them, but he shook his head. "I am not them." The visions cracked and broke apart. The cockpit cleared. The voices fell silent. The ship's shaking slowed once more, its wild fury giving way to something else. Respect. The junker leveled out, gliding through the impossible rift with calm precision. The stars beyond twisted into lines, then snapped back into focus. The human's chest rose and fell, breath heavy, but his eyes shone with fire. He had done what no one else could. He had crossed the rift. Far behind, the alien station watched through sensors, their screens barely able to follow the ship's path. Officers and soldiers stared in disbelief. The cursed vessel was not tearing itself apart. It was flying smoother than any of their best ships. One alien whispered, "Impossible." Another answered, "No human." The commander leaned forward, his face pale. For years he had called the junker a death trap. For years he had sworn no one could master it. But now, in front of his eyes, a single human had proven him wrong. In the cockpit, the human leaned back slightly, his grip loosening for the first time. He let the ship glide, its movements no longer hostile but steady, almost graceful. The connection between them was clear now. He was not its prisoner. He was its pilot. A slow smile touched his lips. "We're not done yet, are we?" The ship pulsed in reply, its lights flaring brighter. The bond between them deepened, something no alien had ever felt. He had not only survived, he had claimed the impossible. And in that moment, somewhere deep in the silence of space, the legend of the human pilot was born. The junker glided through the rift like a predator that had finally found its master. The violent shakes, the chaotic screams, the crushing weight, all of it had faded into silence. Only the steady hum of the engines remained, calm and powerful, echoing in rhythm with the human's heartbeat. For the first time in its long history, the cursed ship was not fighting. It was obeying. The human leaned forward in the cockpit, his eyes scanning the panels. Strange alien symbols pulsed across the screens, shifting like flowing water. To anyone else, they would have been nonsense. To him, they were beginning to make sense. Not words, but feelings. Not commands, but understanding. It was as if the ship itself was teaching him, whispering its secrets directly into his mind. He adjusted the controls gently, and the ship responded instantly, gliding smoother than any vessel he had ever flown. He tested it again, turning sharply toward a cluster of stars. The junker obeyed with perfect precision, faster and sharper than the polished ships of the alien fleet. The human's lips curved into a faint smile. "You were never junk, were you?" The ship pulsed in reply, its lights flaring with pride. Far behind, on the alien station, chaos reigned. Officers shouted over one another. Screens blared with impossible readings, and soldiers rushed to confirm what they were seeing. The cursed ship was alive in their monitors, flying better than anything in their fleet. One alien slammed his fist against the console. "It shouldn't be possible," another whispered, almost in fear. "He is controlling it." "No, it is following him." The commander stood in silence at the center of the room, his hands clenched behind his back. His eyes were locked on the glowing trail the junker carved through space. The impossible had become real, and the one who made it real was not one of his kind. It was the human. Inside the ship, the human pushed further. He urged the junker to accelerate, and it did, bursting forward with such speed that stars blurred into streaks of light. The cockpit rattled, but this time, it was not chaos. It was power, raw and pure, and he could feel it surging through his body. The human's mind flashed with images, shadows of battles fought long ago. Alien fleets torn apart by ships like this one. He saw planets burning, skies ripped open, and voices crying out. The junker was showing him its past, revealing the truth. It had been built for war. It had been feared not because it was broken, but because it was too powerful, too alive for anyone to command. Until now, the human whispered, "I understand. You weren't meant for them. You were meant for me." The ship's hum deepened, almost like a growl of agreement. He tightened his grip on the controls and dove toward a dense asteroid field ahead. The aliens on the station gasped as their monitors tracked the ship's path. No one would dare fly through such a graveyard of spinning rock and debris. Even their most advanced ships avoided it. But the junker dove straight in, weaving between massive stones, moving at impossible speeds. Inside, the human's hands moved like water, smooth and unshaken. Every twist of the controls matched the ship's instinct. Every sudden turn was answered with precision. Together, they danced through the chaos, gliding past spinning boulders, slipping through gaps that no sane pilot would attempt. The junker was not resisting, it was eager, alive, almost enjoying the challenge from the station. Voices shouted in disbelief, "He'll be crushed, no one survives the asteroid field." But their words were drowned by the sight of the ship streaking out the other side unharmed, its engines roaring with victory. The commander's eyes narrowed. He has done what no one else could. He has made it his. Back in the cockpit, the human leaned back slightly, his chest heaving with heavy breaths. The adrenaline surged through him, but so did something else. Connection. He no longer felt like he was inside a machine. He felt as if he and the ship were one. Bonded at the core, he placed a hand gently on the console, his voice calm but certain. "You and I, we're not finished. We're just beginning." The panels pulsed brighter, the hum deepening into something almost like a heartbeat. The junker had chosen him, and together, they had crossed the line from curse to legend. For the first time in history, the ship was no longer feared. It was mastered. On the station, silence spread. The aliens who had mocked, who had warned, who had spat at the very idea of flying the junker, now stood frozen. Their pride was shattered, their beliefs undone. A soldier whispered, "We said it," was junk. But now, the commander finally spoke, his voice heavy with realization. Now it is the most dangerous ship in the galaxy, and it belongs to him. The truth settled over them all. The cursed ship was no longer theirs to fear, it was his to wield. And whatever came next, none of them could stop it. Out in the stars, the junker surged forward with its human pilot, stronger, faster, and more alive than ever. The galaxy had just changed, though most of it did not yet know, but they would. The hangar was silent when the junker returned. Alarms had stopped, the trembling had ended. The cursed ship, once feared, glided back toward the docking bay with the grace of a hunter that had claimed its place at the top of the chain, its glowing engines pulsed steady and strong, no longer wild or broken. Aliens crowded the viewing decks, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. They had seen the impossible. They had seen the junker fly not like a cursed relic, but like the greatest ship in the galaxy. At its helm was the human. The docking clamps groaned as the ship lowered onto the hangar floor. Dust lifted in soft waves, but this time there was no chaos, no violence. The junker rested quietly, like a beast lying down beside its master. Its scars still glowed faintly, but they no longer looked like wounds. They looked like marks of power. The cockpit hissed open, steam poured out, curling around the human as he stepped down from the ship. His face was pale, his body worn, but his eyes burned with fire. He walked slowly, each step steady, while the aliens around him stepped back, parting to clear his path. None dared speak at first. Then, a whisper. "He survived." Another voice followed, trembling. "He mastered it." The whispers grew, spreading like a storm. The human did what no one else could. The commander stood at the front of the crowd. His face was hard, his jaw set, but his eyes betrayed the truth: shock, disbelief, and respect. For years, he had declared the junker untouchable, cursed, deadly. For years, he had believed no one could tame it. Now, he watched the human walk calmly toward him, alive, victorious. The commander's voice was low, but it carried through the silence. "How?" The human stopped a few steps away. He looked the commander in the eye. His voice was steady, simple. "Because I never saw junk. I saw a ship waiting for someone who would not fear it." The words struck deep. The aliens shifted uneasily, their pride unraveling. For generations, they had called humans reckless, fragile, weak. But now, standing before them, was proof that weakness was not the whole story. Courage, stubbornness, and defiance, that was what made the difference. The commander searched for anger, for insult, for anything to hold onto, but none came. Instead, he gave a slow, reluctant nod. "You have done what none of us could. You have changed the fate of that ship." The human's gaze flicked back to the junker, still glowing softly behind him. "No, the ship changed me too." The silence that followed was heavy. Every alien in the hangar knew what had just happened was not just victory, it was legend. The cursed ship had chosen. The human had answered. Together, They had broken the boundaries of fear. A young soldier, unable to contain himself, stepped forward. "What will you do now? Will you keep flying it?" The human turned back, his face calm but his eyes sharp as steel. "The galaxy is wide, and if this ship can do what I think it can, then it's only the beginning." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The thought of the junker loose in the stars, no longer bound, no longer silent, was terrifying. But alongside that terror was something else, admiration. That the commander stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You understand what you carry now, don't you? That ship, it is not just a machine. It is power. Power no one has controlled in generations." "I understand," the human said. "That's why it belongs to me." The words echoed through the chamber, final and absolute. The junker pulsed behind him, a deep thrum like a heartbeat. As if agreeing, the hangar lights flickered once, then steadied. The cursed ship, once mocked as a useless piece of junk, now stood as the most feared and respected vessel in sight. From that moment, the story began to spread, first through the station, then through the fleet, then across systems and worlds. Whispers turned to stories, stories turned to legends. Everywhere it reached, the same words followed, only the human dared. And though the galaxy was vast and full of dangers, one truth had become clear to all who had witnessed the moment. The balance had shifted. The age of fear had ended. The age of the human pilot had begun. The human stood still for a long moment, his hand resting on the ship's scarred hull. He could feel its pulse beneath his palm, steady and strong. It no longer felt cursed. It no longer felt dangerous. It felt alive. He looked out through the hangar doors at the endless stars waiting beyond. His voice was quiet, but every ear heard it. "Let's see what else," they said, was impossible. The junker's engines rumbled in reply, eager, ready, and with that, the human turned back toward his ship. The hangar watched in silence as he climbed once more into the cockpit. The hatch sealed. The lights flared when the engines roared again. No one mocked, no one doubted. They only watched, knowing they were seeing the birth of something greater than fear. A legend had risen.